And the team that everybody's talking about right now, the team that got into the state final round for the first time in school history, the Wildcats of Canton South. This team came to play in Talmadge last Friday night. That 35-13 victory they got was just unbelievable and so unusual for the way in which you would normally see a game like this. Dave Sheets and I were on the call for that game, and I said this to him on the air. Normally, you would see a team get ahead in these playoff games, and then they use the rushing attack to try and milk the clock for what it's worth, to try and waste as much time as you possibly can. Canton South, the more efficient way of them getting the ball downfield and keeping it out of the opponent's hand was throwing, was passing, was using Poochie Snyder's abilities to get a bunch of third down conversions. And then on the opposite side, you usually think, oh, if you get down big in a game, you got to, make these big plays, the passing wise, throw deep balls down the field. Struthers threw the ball twice, neither of which was a completion. So they finished the game with 0 passing yards, 0 completions. And they had a bunch of chunk plays that kind of kept them in the game a little bit, even though Canton South eventually went up big pretty late in the contest and secured that trip to the state semifinals.
Canton South's been doubted, I think, for the past 2 weeks, Mitch, and they have responded in the best way they possibly could. You mentioned, teams get up and they milk the clock a little bit. You know what's more demoralizing to a team, though, when you're up to their opponent, is when you just keep pouring it on. And that's what Canton South's done. They just keep pouring it on. And that, as an opposing team, you feel almost helpless if a team keeps pouring it on, rather than if you can force a 3 and out because the team's just trying to milk the clock and you get the ball back thinking you have a little bit of optimism. And then, one bad break here, one bad tip pass here, and it bounces your way, you're right back in a game. Canton South has just said, no, we're going to give the football to our best player and let him make plays. And then Saturday, I saw the play Poochie Snyder made Friday night, where he looked like he was going to go down, running towards the sideline, throwing across his body. I mean, you can't describe what type of player this kid is. He is such a sensational talent. Obviously, by his accolades and the career numbers he's been able to put up at Canton South, now the all-time Stark County leading career passing leader in yards, career passing leader in touchdowns. I mean, the guy can beat you with his legs. He can play. He plays the other side of the ball too. I mean, this guy is ridiculous. And they played Cleveland Glenville, the reigning Division IV state champions. And at first, I'm not going to lie to you, I was kind of like, well, this is pretty cool. This is really cool. They get to the Final Four. Why? Why should I have any doubt in my mind right now that Canton South can't beat this team? Yes, this is going to be a different beast than what they've played. Absolutely. This is a team that has a plethora of Division I recruits. You have, just off the top of my head, I know you have the tight end coming to Ohio State who had offers from Alabama, Georgia, Michigan. Is it Demario Witten, I believe? Something along those lines. They have a number of Division I recruits, but you know what? Right now, it's who's playing the best football. And Canton South's playing really good football, Mitch. They really are. People thought they were going to go down to West Branch. They smoked West Branch. People thought Struthers had a chance. They had anything but a chance, apparently, in this game. And Canton South is playing their best football right now. Keep in mind, remember a couple weeks ago when I told you that Bookville game might be the closest game they have in the playoffs, and it's just how it is sometimes? They've responded exactly how you would expect that team to respond after they had a scare at home. And they're just fun, man. And thank goodness the OHSAA. Well, first off, no, the OHSAA screwed up to begin with.
The game was supposed to be played in Euclid, but there were some people that were very vocal about the decision because the game would have been just a couple minutes away for Glenville in the Cleveland area compared to the 40-minute drive it usually takes to get from Canton to Euclid.
In bus, it was going to be almost an hour and 20 minutes for Canton South to get to Euclid Stadium. And it's a 10 to 15-minute drive with traffic for Cleveland Glenville to get to Euclid Stadium. Not only that, there also are concerns about Euclid Stadium. We saw a lot of what went on this year with Euclid High School not being able to play all their games at their stadium. But what neutral site, that is anything but neutral site. Cool. You're not playing at Glenville Stadium, but you're playing 10 minutes from their stadium. Okay. And Canton South's the 1 seed. Canton South, the top seed,
Right.
the region that won, and they're coming here undefeated. Uh, so bad by the OHSAA for doing that to begin with, but good by the OHSAA to eventually change it. And now these teams are going to play at Wadsworth, which is pretty smack dab in the middle of both schools.
I want to make sure I get this right. Was the site? I know the site for Euclid was determined in the pre the matchup on Friday, correct?
From what I saw, it looked like it was just that was where it was going.
Right.
Like once the teams were announced, they were like, all right, we're playing at Euclid. And it was just like,
okay. Because that would be different than them already having that site determined and then the thing changing. Because when I first saw that happening, I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. Canton South's going to be playing. If they win Friday, they're going to be playing 5 minutes away in the championship game. But that's where all the teams are going to be playing that particular round that Friday and Saturday night and Thursday night, from what I remember now.
Hey,
so
listen, we've seen it before with Massillon there. We've seen it before with Akron Hoban there. We've seen it before with other local teams, but what I would do to see that stadium packed for Canton South. I mean, that would be so cool to see Canton South in their first ever trip to states, get to Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, potentially having a legitimate home crowd behind them. That would be really, really cool. But they're going to have their hands full this Friday, that's for sure. But I think Cleveland Glenville is going to have their hands full with Poochie Snyder as well. And I'm very excited about this game.
And you're talking about the reigning Division IV state champions, first Cleveland public school to ever win a state football championship. That was last year, Ted Ginn's squad. Speaking of Massillon and Hoban, both of them victorious this week, as we kind of expected. Massillon took on their Stark County counterparts, Green. And I'll give this, Green had a defensive stand for a bit, and then Massillon kind of just did what it normally does. The Tigers end up getting back into the state semifinals once again. They will be taking on Cincinnati Anderson this coming Friday at historic Crew Stadium. So they're going to take a bit of a travel themselves. I mean, Anderson's good. They were the top seed in their region, 13-1 on the year. It's going to determine how they're going to offensively match up with this Tigers team. They did just beat Withrow 49-28 in the Region 8 championship. I mean, what's the outlook right now for Washington? How they're expecting them? Is this sort of like an expectation to get back into this championship game, or are they like making sure to not take their eyes off of Anderson?
They're going to tell you they're not taking their eyes off Anderson, Mitch, but at the same time, we've talked about it all year. We know what the state championship game matchup could very well be. And it's hard to think that there's not wandering eyes potentially. It's really hard to think that. I don't care what players or coaches say, because at the end of the day, we're human. We're all on social media. And we can all see what the bracket looks like. We know that it could be Hoban and Massillon, which is what majority of people have wanted. They think this is the best chance Massillon has to beat Hoban in, recent memory, since they finally beat them the last time and then lost in the state championship. But if Massillon's looking ahead, they were going to get beat this week. It's as simple as that. Anderson is not a team you're going to take lightly. Anderson, like you said, the top seed in their region for a reason. And this is a team that is going to have athletes over the field that can match up with Massillon, unlike what Green could do. Green was just out physicaled, realistically. The offensive line had no chance. Semino Manson had absolutely zero time to throw. It was like he was getting that ball in his hands in a shotgun, and there was already somebody in his face. And the Green defense stepped up. They kept him in it with 2 turnovers in the first half, but Green could not muster anything up. This Cincinnati Anderson team is going to be able to put points up on the board if they force turnovers. And that's just the reality of it as you get this deep in the playoffs, and you're talking about a team from a huge city or a huge region of the Cincinnati region. This is the off in the region that Massillon's had the most trouble with. Let's remember that. This is the team, not the specific team, but this is the region teams have come out and beat Massillon before in the state semifinals, in the state championship game before. So this is very intriguing. I'm not going to call it the state championship game, though, because I do think that the toughest opponent remaining for Massillon is Akron Hoban, who's on the other side of the bracket. They will take on Avon this week, I believe.
Yes.
And we saw those teams play already this year. So I'd have to imagine that Hoban will handle business there. But next Thursday night is what people are already talking about, Mitch. Massillon versus Hoban, round 8. It seems like it's every year. they cannot get caught looking ahead, or else their season's over, and they're gonna have a long bus ride back to Canton, Ohio from Columbus on Friday night. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah, Avon's unbeaten going into this game against Hoban, so I'm not sure if it's going to be this afterthought. Meanwhile, Anderson has averaged 41 points per game going into last week's contest, have not allowed more than 14 points in a game this year. So it's two good teams that are going to be facing off a historic Crew Stadium. And of course, Garaway. Shout out to the Garaway Pirates for making their first trip to the state semifinals after they finally broke through. Jason Wallach's squad has had a couple of shortcomings in the playoffs the last couple of years. They finally were able to get to the state semifinal round, beating West Jefferson really handily. This is the third time, Mitch, that Garaway has won by a score of 42-7 in these playoffs. I mean, we saw it just a couple of weeks ago against East Knox on Big Time Sports, where Garaway gets up to this big lead in the first half, and then they kind of go on cruise control for the remainder of it. I don't know personally if they're going to be able to do it in these next upcoming games if they get past a good Kirtland team that has been in the playoffs year in and year out for over the last decade. I mean, they have 5-6 state championships in the last 12, 13 years. This is a team that knows how to win here. It's going to be a tall task for Garaway, maybe the tallest of tasks of all the three remaining Stark and Tuscarawas County teams here that we cover here on Big Time Sports. But I'm excited to see it. Dylan Sunland, the running back, has been very good still for the team. 3 touchdowns again for Garaway. Not a huge kid, but a guy that runs fast and is bruising as a big back. And Brady Geibel doing his thing at quarterback. Jensen Garber running a punt back for a touchdown again. One of the best all-around players in Tuscarawas County, maybe even the state. This kid can play, and these kids can play. Garaway, congratulations on a very successful season. I know you want to end it in the best way possible, but this season has been a success.